move on to our motions and general business this evening, and we'll start out with a public forum on He Mni Can, Barn Bluff. So we'll start out with Noah White.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Noah White. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for Prairie Island Indian Community, and I'm going to let my cousin Nikki talk on the subject.
Hello, my name is Nikki Buck. I'm from the Prairie Island Indian Community. My address is 753 Freeman Avenue. I'm tucked in just nicely in between the two bluffs, Memorial and Barn. He Mni Can. I take it up every sunrise to come collect some medicines that are important to our people. I'm going to take it down at sunrise too. Recently, we've been in contact with Brian and letting him know of all the things that have been happening up there, and he has all the evidence that we have captured and brought into it. For something that is so sacred to our people, it's been getting... The graffiti has been disgusting and very disrespectful, not only just to our people, but to the other people who reside in Red Wing who cherish that bluff just as much as we do. Not only does it bring a bad sense with the garbage and the disrespect, but it also taints precious treasures important to our community that help with the mind, body, soul, and emotions. We want this to be a place for everybody to go and call their special place. But the lack of respect for our culture, for our heritage, and for our medicines has made me change my mind about letting people voice their opinion up on that bluff. Because that means that our voice isn't being heard either. So I just wanted to let you know how truly important He Mni Can is to our people, and that you make the right decision on all of your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Burke Murphy.
Thank you. I'm Burke Murphy. I live at 620 East 7th Street, and I live between Memorial Park and Barn Bluff as well. After reading the material provided, my assessment is that the precedence of inaction is being given equal weight to the consideration of the actual benefits and consequences of accepting or disregarding the recommendations of 3 city commissions tasked with addressing this issue of graffiti on the Barn Bluff. So in that context, I ask you to consider these questions. What are the consequences of being delisted on the National Register of Historic Places? The research you've provided states that there's a possible impact of losing federal or state tax benefits. You also list that there's a possible risk of losing state and federal grant funding. Given the concern that citizens have about the burden of increasing taxes, why would we jeopardize losing these benefits? Question. Second, what are the consequences of disrespecting the designation of Barn Bluff as a sacred site by the Prairie Island Dakota tribal community? Clearly, the commissions, all 3, unanimously value having an honorable and respectful partnership with the tribe. I join them in that respect. Third, what are the benefits of having 3 city commissions dedicate their civic leadership and commitment to fulfill their charge as commissioners and then disregard their recommendations? I would think the consequences could have tremendous gravity, that 22 people dedicated time and thought leadership, and yet we are swayed by the precedence of inaction. those are the questions that I present to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet Brandt.
Hello, my name is Janet Brandt. I live at 1033 Kingman Avenue, and that's a hard act to follow. I just want to speak in support of the Commission's work. I thought their reasons for not allowing painting on the bluff were very wise. I think we should respect the deed, the original deed, and also that the National Register, I think, is got to be a huge deal. We would not want that to be delisted. Barn Bluff is a huge presence in Red Wing. When you come into town, it just commands your view. And I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of feeling about the bluff, that they like seeing it. They don't necessarily go up there, but Barn Bluff is just beautiful the way it is. It's natural. I think it's just a shame to try to change it with various statements. And I'm also concerned about the liability for the city. I would not want to go up there and be, the Public Works would have to go up, or whoever would have to go up and paint over. I think that's a waste of time. So I know it's been a tradition for quite a few years, but not hundreds of years. And maybe sometimes a tradition should just be let go. It's okay. So I just want to speak for just leaving Barn Bluff the way it is. It's beautiful the way it is. Let it be.
Thank you. Bill Handy.
All right, I'm going to try to get this in 3.5 minutes. I'm watching. Good evening. My name is Bill Hanish, and I reside at 410 West 3rd Street, downtown Red Wing. The history of the bluff that casts a large shadow over Red Wing is quite interesting. Native Americans and first settlers used the bluff as a lookout point to see far up and down the valley. They used the bluff to watch for the first steamboats to arrive from the south in the spring with much anticipation. Later, the bluff was quarried, and much of the limestone was used to build the town of Red Wing. In 1907, the citizens put a halt to this that they called defacing the bluff, and in 1910, it was donated to the city of Red Wing as a park. Now, when the deed was drawn up in 1910, the word defacing, I'm going to assume, meant slightly different than what would think of defacing today, seeing as paint was merely 50 years old in that time and spray paint was a few years off in the distance. I highly doubt that in 1910 they thought the process was to stop would-be artists on the bluff. It was more about the overall destruction of what might have been the end of our famous bluff. The bluff stood much unchanged after this, with some local companies posting signage up on the bluff, and in 1929, the local Kiwanis group building the first stairway to the top of the bluff so locals could enjoy the magnificent view. But in the late 1950s, they were demolished along with much of the beautiful bluff to make way for the new bridge and expanded Highway 61, thus creating the area we are discussing this evening. The Kiwanis did end up restoring portions of the stairway in 1983, which was to use today to get to the top of the bluff. Now, back to the area we're going to discuss, the artistic portion of the bluff. For many years, people have gazed up to see what is on the side of the bluff. Now, I don't want to use the term billboard because to me, that's commercial and it involves money. I would use the word canvas. Now, there are a few definitions and uses of the word canvas, but one that struck out to me was this: the background, setting, or scope of a historical or fictional account or narrative. Now, to me, that is a perfect description of what this area on the bluff means to Red Wing. It is the background, the setting, and the scope of accounts of history, whether they be real or fictional, in our town and area. Many paintings, yes, paintings, have adorned the bluff, with the majority being the rite of passage for a few brave students each year to paint their class year proudly on the bluff. There's been memories of loved ones, sports teams, patriotic symbols, current events painted in this area. There's been controversy. There's been marriage proposals, political statements, and even a pot of gold. Now, if that doesn't sound like interesting history, then I don't know what does. So myself and 4 others have formed our own committee, only because that was step 1 in the process, to propose a change in the wording of the said current graffiti policy of the City of Red Wing. And we'll start the petition process to have the city place it on a ballot and allow the citizens of Red Wing to make a deciding vote on what is to happen with the Bluff. As you see, I did not use the word tradition. This is more than that. You can also see I never even called it Barn Bluff. To myself, it's just the Bluff. And I would say that most people of Red Wing, it is that. It's just the Bluff. The Bluff that we hike, climb, bike, and admire. Pages are sticking. The Bluff that we share with everyone. The Bluff that we photograph, and the Bluff that we paint what is important to not only us, but our area. People from all over look up to see what is painted on the Bluff every time. I got 3 more sentences. People look up to see what's painted on the Bluff every time they come to town. Residents who moved away, returning to visit, want to know what is on the Bluff. The artistic paintings have been placed in this small area of the Bluff, are part of the fabric of our community, and just like a canvas, I hope this fabric is allowed to continue for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Christensen?
He was with the.
Oh, he was with the others?
Homes.
Oh, okay.
He left.
Mark Ryan?
Good evening. I'm Mark Ryan, 1326 South Park Street, and I am currently the chair of the Red Wing. Go ahead.
Human rights.
Oh, I always say heritage rights because it's not human rights. All right, I knew I was going to say that, man. It is true that this painting on the Bluff has gained a certain tradition within this community of Red Wing. It's been going on for 50 or 60 years, something like that, and it has been a rite of passage, possibly. But it used to be a common event in the city of Red Wing that we painted signs for oil companies or cigarettes or chewing tobacco on the side of buildings. And we decided that that was not an appropriate thing at that time, just as painting these things on the side of the Bluff is not appropriate as well. Okay? Now, Native Americans have regarded this Bluff as a sacred spot for thousands of years. If you take a look at some of the archaeology that is being done around this area, some of the stuff which is up on the Bluff, this area was probably the northernmost extent of the Mississippian culture out of Cahokia near St. Louis, considered to be one of the major cultural traditions of North America, equaling the Mayans in Mexico. Okay? So for thousands of years, this area has been a significant location to Native Americans. At the head of the Lake Pepin, it was sort of their northernmost boundary for easy transport on the lake via canoe. Okay? It was this tradition from Native Americans which brought the white man to Red Wing. Okay? The trappers, the fur traders, they came to this region because this is where the Native Americans were. This is where they came to hunt. This is where they came to harvest. So it became the meeting place, the meeting ground for 2 very different cultures. Okay? The train of thought here. I got ahead of myself. Anyway, there are many cultural sites around here. Some of the sites up on top of He Mni Can, Barn Bluff, those native sites may be, in fact, thousands of years old. So this goes far beyond just the Native American community at Prairie Island. Okay? Now, For thousands of years, the natives have been here for almost as long. We have not had much of a regard for the native community and their culture and their traditions. That is changing now, hopefully, gladly, and we are now taking into account those values which were important to the first residents of this community, and we should continue to respect them as we deal with this very important sacred site. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Shear. Shirley? The homeless, okay. Gene Wolowski?
Close enough.
Sorry.
My name is Jeannie Waleski. I live on Old Cherry Street. I guess all of this started because of the Prince symbol that was put up on the bluff that somebody found so offensive. Prince is an icon to the state of Minnesota, so personally I think somebody's got too much time on their hands to complain about such a thing. The bluff has been painted different varying self-regulating pictures since I was a kid, so that's getting to be a long time ago. I get the island history and the importance of the bluff to that community. And I'm wondering if there shouldn't be some kind of an arrangement made with them to do manage and control, not so much control, but management issues of that bluff so that they can take care of it in a manner that they deem acceptable. Because you have to understand, it doesn't matter what you all sit here and say or what you all decide, somebody is still going to sneak up on that bluff and paint it anyway. So there are cost issues that I think are a common sense approach to this issue. I know there's emergency situations that the fire chief or whoever could probably throw his discussion in on what the time and the effort and the cost that's been spent on this. So again, I'm just wondering if maybe management by the tribe wouldn't be something to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. It's everyone that's signed up. So is there anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward.
My name is Ralph Bryan, and I live at 2839 Pine Ridge Boulevard. And I had no intention of speaking this evening, but I have written 5 editorials, letters to the editor of the paper. Now, I'll condense it very simply, at least in my mind, and that is that it's against the law, graffiti is. There's a city ordinance against it, number 1. Number 2, they are writing on property that they don't own. It's a public park. And I went up on the bluff. I was just curious enough, how are they painting on the bluff? Are they hiding that ladder someplace? Well, I couldn't find it. But I did find that they have cut trees. And there's a picture that appeared in the paper. Now, they have taken a lot of liberties with a public park, and I think law enforcement has said we can't enforce this unless the city council comes up with hard and fast rules. Now, where I live, if you don't pick up after your dog, it's a $700 fine and it's jail time. Thank you.
Thank you. Johnny?
Good evening, President and council members. My name is Johnny Johnson. I live in Welch, Minnesota, and I'm a council member for the Prairie Island Indian community and also a tribal member. I'm here to speak about He Mni Can. Today where you sit is where He Mni Can existed. and look at what it demonstrates on how much it was torn apart. Ukpahu Duta, which is Chief Red Wing, who had his encampment all through this area, along with Chief Wabasha, my ancestors. He Mni Can is a burial site for many of our members up on the hill there. We fought many times about some issues that we thought were very strong, and graffiti is one. If you go and if we say don't paint or make graffiti on our burial sites of our community members, our relations, then is it equally to let us go up on, what's the cemetery up there? Oakwood Cemetery, and let us paint on their mounds, their burial sites? I don't think so. This is respect on the Prairie Island Indian community and the Dakota people of this area. I'll read you a couple things that we wrote down. Barnes Bluff is also called He Mni Can, which is the Bedawakatan Dakota language meaning hill, water, and bluffs. The bluff is considered sacred by the Dakota and is the site of many burial mounds. Prairie Island Indian community feels strongly that the bluff should be free of all paint, graffiti, due to its being an extremely sacred place for the Dakota people. In the past year, Prairie Island Indian community has been working with the city officials to resolve this issue, including delaying the nomination of the bluff to see if the graffiti policy was going to be enforced. And that's where we're going to stand. We want this to stop. And take a look at what and who we are as a people in this community. He Mni Can is very important to us. And to me, sitting here, I remember the day that my father took me up there on that bluff. And it was tear-jerking to our family. His father took him up on that bluff, and he said, "Come on, son, let's go up on that bluff." He says, "I want to take you to a sacred area." And we did. We went off the path, and I said, "You can't do that. You're going to fall." We went to this grassy area, and he told me to lay down. And you know what he told me to do? He said, "Put your ear to the ground and see if our relations are here anymore." Because a long time ago, He Mni Can, you could hear the drum beats of our community in that sacred hill. And I put my ear to the ground, and I couldn't hear anything anymore. So again, on behalf of the Prairie Island Indian community, its people, and the Tribal Council, we ask you to vote no, and no more graffiti on the hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Stephen Sorman. I live at 457 West 7th Street. If for no other reason you didn't ban painting from the bluff, the one overarching principle here would be to show a little respect. I'm sorry that your sacred place has been defaced. Also, I'm an artist, and I know painting when I see it, and most of what ends up on the bluff is quite amateurish. It's a capricious act. This is such a beautiful sight to deface, even given the Native American history and connection to that bluff. I think it's an affront to all of us. Penalties can be established. I mean, if somebody sneaks up there and paints it after it is returned to its original state as much as possible, and I'd say that probably have to be sandblasted or blasted away somehow. I think penalties could be leveled that would require people to pay for the restoration. So I really believe this is a no-brainer, and I urge you to actually add any language to the graffiti ordinance that you have to, and take this stuff off the bluff. Thank you.
Thank you. In the back row back there.
My name is Patricia Rexigal. I live at 305 Spring Creek Road South. I've never spoken in this type of circumstance before. This is very strong feelings that I have, even though I've only lived here 10 years. I was taught to respect public property. I was also taught to respect my elders and my community and my country. And this situation that has come up, Barn Bluff Hill, it's very emotional to me. I remember seeing a movie years ago, it's called America, where everyone, because of their inaction, rights were taken away from American citizens. And so that's why I chose to speak today. I'm one voice. I was not in that public poll. I'm in the 5% that didn't get to speak, so I chose to speak tonight. I just would hope that you would honor the different commissions that have given you their opinion about this subject. I wish to honor the Dakota youth and what they have in this community. I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go here. It doesn't matter. Chris, go ahead.
Hi everyone, Chris Nelson, Chairman of the Planning Advisory Planning Commission. I also live at 109 Finroad Avenue. A lot of the points I was going to talk about were already discussed by Brian, and some of the people that have spoken already have already talked about some of these points, so I'm just going to basically put in some fillers for what I have to say. At our meeting when we discussed this, there was something towards the end where if this were to move forward where there's no more painting or anything on the bluff, we'd like to see the community come together to at least get a new spot or something where we can continue that, where people can have an opportunity to express themselves, because right now that painting is Red Wing, in itself, but we're kind of fighting this with each other here. Is this good to go? Is this not? But if that were to not happen anymore, we discussed where it'd be nice to see something move forward where we as a city could find another location or something where we could have that continue on with the class numbers or any memorials or anything that pop up. John, I was going to touch on that a little bit too. What we did as a planning commission, it was basically at individual level with what staff had provided to keep us up to date, and it's kind of tough on our part because of open meeting laws, whatever, to really get out there and talk to people. I mean, granted, you hear some people, talk to me just a little bit here and there, but it was a lot of seeing these meetings right here. It was listening to the audio for the workshops. The other part was on the individual basis of looking at what we have for the comp plan, with the Barn Bluff plan. Also, it was current ordinances, the 1911 deed, just any other information that was out there. It was just basically comprising that all together to get where we interpret all that, where we can move forward with what we were tasked to do with the Planning Commission. And the other thing was individuals started talking about I'm sorry, I forgot what your name was, but it was the graffiti ordinance. That was one of the things, that was one of my strong things when I looked at this. It was a 1911 deed, and it was the ordinance. That was the things, it was the legal aspect of all this. So that, for me, was kind of the showstopper for me right there. I guess if we, if that were, some of these were to be addressed, then maybe that could move things one way or the other right there. But with that also, with the ordinances, if we're doing something wrong now and continue to let it slip, is that going to happen with other ordinances or something like this where it's for sure we can get that one spot where we can paint? Is it going to spread? Is there going to be trees cut down to clear more areas, or is someone always going to be, potentially removing brush and trees where that area, will always be opened up? So is this some concerns? Probably won't happen, or to the greatest extent, the worst possible case, situation probably won't happen in regards to that. Or, worst case scenario is people finding spots on other parts of the Bluff and Memorial where they could continue to do this and push the issue. So that's just for some food for thought, thinking down the road here. So that's what I have for now. If anybody has any questions or anything. Nope. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. What?
Hi, I'm Roseanne Grasso, and I live at 300 Red Wing. I don't remember my address. 300 Red Wing.
It's changed.
I don't remember.
That's okay,
Red
Roseanne.
Wing
We know you
Avenue.
just moved.
Yeah.
Huh?
You just moved. So
Yes, I did.
You're allowed.
Nice place.
It's past my bedtime. Everybody that spoke so eloquently made a lot of good points. I might come from it from a different direction, and I hope you're speaking to me when I'm done, okay? You had 3 commissions that worked really, really hard getting you an opinion, and they worked with the public. Okay? They spoke, these people have spoken, and I know there's another side with a petition, and if they want to do that, that's fine. But this is an election year, and I would say to everybody who's out there campaigning and knocking on doors, ask this question. What are your feelings about Barn Bluff? And you're going to get a lot of answers, and you're going to be surprised. But I personally think we elected you people to make decisions on what's best for this community. And I think a lot of the community has spoken, and they should be listened to. Because there is a lot of feeling about that Bluff, not only with the Indian community, but with the residents that have lived here a long time or a short time. People come to town and say, they want to know about the Bluff. And it doesn't have to be artwork on that Bluff. We have to respect the people that gave it to us. We want to respect what they said about defacing it. And he said there's 2 kinds of defacing. Yes, the quarry, they stopped that because they wanted to preserve it. To me, that's almost as bad as the quarry in some ways. You come into town, that's the first thing you see. So I say, whoever's running, knocking on doors, ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
My name's Todd Avery. I live at 29361 Flower Valley Road, Red Wing. Thank you, Council, for giving me this opportunity to speak. Distinguished the city servants. I wish I could turn back the hands of time, because I think there's been a lot of mistakes made in decisions that we've made. I am really torn on the issue. Certainly, I have abiding respect for our Native community. I think that the Bluff has been desecrated, has been damaged, has been raped in the past, and it doesn't just go back to the the limestone industry period. That Bluff used to have an iconic face on it that we dynamited off. More limestone was removed from that bluff probably in 1958 than was ever quarried off that bluff. We talk about a deed that says we shouldn't do things, and we've done them. You know, we have done them in our recorded history. I unfortunately wasn't alive at the time to be able to see the face on the bluff. Like I said, I'm torn on this issue. I grew up with the number on the bluff. You know, the painting, the years is part of my history in this town. But I understand that there's deeper issues. So I hope that we can take some time to weigh it out, to not be quick on decisions, to find out what the people of Red Wing truly want, and to follow those wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else? All right.
Done good. Do we need to close the forum?
Do we need to close the forum?
I think we need. Do we need to close the forum or anything?
Close the forum. Okay. So. You want to wrap up, Brian?
Well, I guess what's before you then is really the question on decision one. Do you want to take some action tonight on regarding this enforcement policy? And we laid out the three. Let's get real quick. The three options before you. A, B, and C. And just, I meant to mention also in my memo to you, I did have a mistake in it, and I have a correction before you. The staff is recommending option A to restrict any painting. And if you are interested in taking that action tonight, I think it's just a simple motion and also setting a date at which time you'd like the enforcement to be effective on. And the staff recommends November 15th because that would give us more than 60 days to publicize it and make it real clear to everyone that the city's policy is effective on that date. And that was kind of a recommendation that came to us from the attorney and in working with the county prosecutor and our police chief, that we kind of set ourselves some time to make sure we can publicize this change in enforcement action. But then there are lots of course, could have listed dozens of options here, but generally, you could leave things the way they are, or look at some kind of limited forum and provide some direction on how you'd like to see that happen.
Dean?
I actually have a question of Amy. If we take action on this tonight and then we get from the committee the petition back and we just have a special election then if they get enough, I just want to know what the procedure is going to be. That's the way I assume it's going to be. But
correct.
So that could actually be a possibility that the ordinance would get overturned.
Correct.
Okay.
Follow up on that really quickly, Amy, is if we do take action tonight, does that action have any impact on the petition as written? Like, are we changing the ground out from under them in any way? I just want to know.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. questions?
Maybe we should make a motion, or somebody should make a motion in a second, then we should discuss, I think. So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that the city adopt a motion to close the public forum, adopt option number A. I'm doing this for discussion purposes.
Second.
We have a motion by John, second by Ralph.
John, you want to do a friendly amendment to put down November 15th as the date?
I'm sorry?
Friendly amendment to put down November 15th as the date.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
He's asking if you agree.
Yes.
In your motion.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion by
Just
John.
as it's presented, without any qualification or amendment.
Motion by John, second by Ralph. Any other discussion on this?
All right.
Now we can
talk.
Point of order. You know, there was a motion made, and was there a second? Is there an option to that motion? And isn't that a friendly motion? Don't you have to vote on the motion, the second motion?
No.
He clarified that he was stating the motion as it's written here with it. So basically they were in agreement that they were saying the same thing. Yes. Evan, did you?
So for, as discussion, I mean, if we were to act today, I would absolutely close the forum. I think the evidence from our commissions, from the tribal community, from all the people who've spoken, from the fact that the deed, from the potential of having it delisted is such a huge, such evidence of what the right thing to do is in this case that it's, that's what I want to do. I also served, before I had this seat, I served 8 years on the Charter Commission. I helped rewrite this section about initiative. And I'm also incredibly protective, I would say, of the rights of citizens to petition their government. It's guaranteed in our charter. And so it makes me want to consider whether or not we give this petition a little bit of time to gather signatures.
Yeah, just follow up on that too, with Evan. I do appreciate the charter and the initiative process. However, in my 8 years on city council prior to this year, I always said, you know, we should be enforcing the laws that we have. If you don't like them, advocate to change them. But we have laws already on our books banning graffiti. I've had my garage tagged at one point many years ago. I had to get that off rather quickly. We also ban billboards. So if you look at that and think of it as a billboard, we don't allow billboards either in this town. It's been mentioned that we should be calling this a bulletin board, a community bulletin board. And my problem with that is it doesn't have, people within the community don't have equal access. It's a very challenging site. Many people cannot get up there. So that is very limiting as well. So with those things and the deeds, I guess one of the things I think about the deeds, you know, Amy, you mentioned that the deeds are really not enforceable anymore. Relative to the defacing, then I'm thinking, well, if that's true, then we could also do something else with the land and not make it a park, because we can't enforce that either, right? Or does it have to be a park? I mean, if you're saying parts of the deeds are no longer enforceable, then...
Yeah, so we only looked at the defacing issue. I didn't look at the general grand scheme of the whole as a park piece. But generally, the proposition is that restrictions and deeds, there's a couple different acts that apply, and the idea is that you don't want property to forever be restricted. And so there's a 30-year limit that applies and a 40-year limit that applies. And at least in regards to the defacing piece, those laws would say that part of the deed is no longer enforceable.
Okay. Just the last comment too. I also spent 5 years on the planning commission, so I do truly respect the commission process and the public process that they've gone through. To have them all come back with the unanimous decisions that they want to, basically adopt this as a closed forum, truly says a lot to me. They spend a lot of time with a lot of different folks. I think we should honor those as well.
This might get long-winded. If I can start getting too long-winded, somebody tell me. Yeah, you might need it. No, I'll try to keep it short. Everything that we heard tonight was really good, for Roseanne, I asked this question about 90% of the doors that I go to. I got to be honest, I'm getting a 50-50 read right now. It's real close to what our survey results came back at. They either want it or they don't. I mean, that's just the way it is. Almost everybody agrees. If there is painting up there, there should be some restrictions on what goes up there. I think after everything I've heard tonight, and very much with Evan, I would probably vote to close the public forum. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm also just a little concerned about. I want to make sure that the people that are putting this petition together have a chance to do what they want to do. That's part of our public process also. But in the same respect, I got to agree with Ralph, and both Ralphs. If it's illegal, it's illegal. This is a real tough one for me. It's been illegal for a long time. It's been around longer than I have been around. It started at least 2 years or 4 years before I was born, the painting up on the bluff. Up until tonight, Johnny, I did not know that there was burial mounds up there. This is the first that I've heard of it. So thanks for letting me know that. I have not heard that before. I knew it was sacred. I just didn't know that there was burial mounds up there. So I'm just going to take you at your word on that one, because we haven't got anything that I know of. There is? Okay, I haven't seen it. So that is really the first time that I've heard about it. So being after I've asked that question from Amy, if it winds up going on the ballot, it goes on a ballot. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I said that, 2 months ago in the newspaper. I said, if the petition comes forward, we'll deal with it. If it doesn't, we're going to have a thoughtful discussion, and we're going to make a decision. And that's what we're here to do. So as far as I'm concerned, we've heard from the public now. Now it's our turn to make our decision. We've got 3 commissions that have said that we think that we should close the forum. Most everybody that I heard from tonight says that we should probably close the forum. That's where I'm at. I think I said enough. Did I go over my 3 minutes?
We didn't
Just say yes.
Thank you, President Bicey. There's been a theme that has recurred through tonight, and that's respect. Respect for the deed, respect for our 3 commissions, respect for the Prairie Island community, and respect for the Bluff as we go forward, and to honor promises made in the past, honor our neighbors, our friends, honor a sovereign government that's making a request of us to follow some really rightful comments. And I would just urge the council that you guys, like Dina said, have been elected to make decisions and not defer to a plebiscite. Okay? So I would urge you to make a decision, go forward on this, and let's go forward with this. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's an easy decision tonight because I think that after Evan asked the question, will it impact a petition? We don't know that petition will get enough signatures. So I think I've heard from a number of people saying we've spent a lot of time, commissions have spoken, the public has spoken in a number of different capacities and forums. I actually have about twice as many people speaking to restore it to nature in my door knocking and other community events and things like that I've heard from people. And the only people that I've heard to maintain it are many of them that we received this afternoon that we all would have counted amongst that. So I only received one outside of that asked to maintain it. Because I think that since it still allows for the initiative process to continue, that's great. That's part of our process that we have. But I hope that it's loud and clear that the people of Red Wing have spoken in a lot of different capacities. And the one last thing I feel like I've heard is that no amount of effort will stop people. And I think that I'm asking, I guess, that the people have spoken, and when the city council restates what the people have said, that the community respects that, and that the community doesn't support the painting on the barn bluff after this, if that's the way that the council votes.
Good points. Very good points.
Thank you. I have to, first off, I thank the commissions for the amount of time they put in. I sat in on some of them, watched the others on TV, and listened to them. And they did what they were asked to do, and they gave us an answer. And then we tonight allowed people to come and also speak and share. I probably have two times like Becky's numbers that say, end the painting, even taking into account the ones we got today in emails that said to leave it as is, whatever goes. And so I would support this option A, and if the citizens bring forth a petition, and we'd go the process then. John.
I'll just add this. I think there's one angle that I have not heard anybody discuss yet, and I don't want to sound like a greedy capitalist, but I can say from a first-person perspective, that painting is bad for business. It's hurting our businesses. It's creating a lousy first impression when you pull into town, and you can't overcome a first impression. It's there permanently. So it's got to be said. It's bad for business. Secondly, beyond that, I don't think we have to argue beyond the Native American experience. They were very passionate in how they shared with us how disrespectful it is, and to have to drive past that and see that on a continuous basis. So again, just like Becky said, it's very easy. And I really want to move on and start working towards solutions. And I think we can work together in coming up with some solutions that we can live with.
And I want to reiterate what John said too, is that I'd like to see this energy channeled into new forums and new places for art, and use this energy in a way that doesn't violate the ordinances that we already have.
Yep. I'm all for that.
Anyone else? All right.
Requested roll call.
Roll call. We've had a request for roll call on this. So we have a motion by John, a second by Ralph, to adopt a closed public forum on the Bluff. Roll call.
Rodekus.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Hove.
Aye.
Vicey.
Aye.
6 ayes.